have a master's degree in literature, and then for years when I focused just on reading for fun, I swear as soon as I shut a book, I would just forget everything. Characters, the relationships, the themes I was thinking about when I was reading it, all gone. And for me, I realized that wasn't inherently a memory problem. It was actually more of a systems problem. So I went about finding a way to solve it. I built a good note-taking system, and it's definitely less hardcore than the one I used while working on my degree. But this one does a good job of balancing comprehension with enjoyment. So here's where I was reading a lot, but as soon as someone would ask me about the book that I had just finished, every memory related to the book was just gone. And if someone asked me what it was about, even a couple of weeks later, I was pulling at threads to remember. Maybe I remember the broad strokes, but the details and specifics that actually make a book interesting were just gone. My initial instinct was just to incorporate my reading notes into my commonplace journal, and that was a disaster. Not because the system itself is bad, commonplace notebooks are amazing, but when I actually needed to reference something in the moment while I was in the middle of reading, I could not find anything. My notes were scattered and hidden across pages of completely unrelated things. So I essentially pulled the notes out of that book and gave them their own journal. And that separation is what made everything click for me. Question you might be wondering first is, what's the reading journal even for? I'm not trying to extract maximum value out of every single page. I'm just trying to be present while I'm reading, to understand it, remember it, and maybe have something interesting to say about it weeks, months, years later. Because think about this, you recommend a book to a friend, they read it, and then they want to discuss it with you. But if you read it 6 months ago and you don't remember anything about it by that time, you're kind of screwed. And that's the problem I was trying to fix with this system. And it's obviously not about making reading more efficient so you get through more books. So my note-taking system uses 4 main parts: a character list, chapter summaries, questions and predictions, and then the analysis. So let me walk through each part. So the first is the character list, and it's pretty straightforward, but one word of warning: make sure you leave more pages open for this than you think you'll need. When I was reading East of Eden, I ran out of space on my character list probably a quarter of the way through the book. For each character on the list, I'll write a short description about them, and then their relation to either other main characters or the narrator. We're not talking about writing down a whole biography for each character. Just enough so that if you stop reading, when you come back in a month or two, you'll actually be able to quickly figure out who is who, as opposed to having to skim through the entire part of the book you'd already read. This is a small thing, but it has been a huge help. Second part is chapter summaries. After every chapter or section, if the chapters are really long, I'll just write down the key plot points. Each summary typically won't take up more than like a third of the notebook page. Just what happened and maybe why it matters. This was the section that actually saved me so much time while reading East of Eden. I was reading this book over 5 months, and so when I got later in the book, there's a part where there's a question over a character's paternity that I had completely forgotten. But because I had actually written it down in my summaries, when I scrolled through my notes, I was able to find the context within 30 seconds, which was so much quicker than skimming just through 20, 30 pages and maybe not finding it, or just going off of memory vibes, which is realistically what I would have done. I was able to find it quickly, look at the note that addressed it, and just move on. Now, if you're thinking, isn't that a lot of writing for every chapter? Honestly, yes. But honestly, it doesn't really take as much time as you would think. And the act of writing it down just really helps to cement it in a way that reading doesn't. So if you're already taking the time to read the book, why not take a bit more time to actually remember it well? And the third part is questions and predictions. At the end of every chapter, or if they're really short chapters, at the end of every significant moment, I'll write down questions that I have, not like rhetorical questions, but like genuine questions. Like, is this character actually trustworthy? Was it implied that this thing happening to this unnamed character was actually happening to this specific character? That type of thing, and then I'll just write them out. And if I have a bit of an idea of the answer, I'll also write that down. And it's always kind of just fun to go back and see how much you were actually picking up when you're reading. And a lot of the questions will also come from the margin notes that I've already written, and then just transfer those to the reading journal when I finish the chapter. And writing down these questions and predictions, it gives you a better idea of the type of foreshadowing or themes that I want to keep an eye out for as I continue reading. It feels kind of like you're solving a puzzle. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I completely miss the mark, but regardless, it helps me keep my reading critical and engaged. And finally, the analysis, which is my favorite part. I guess it'd be concerning if it wasn't, because this is where like the thinking and connections actually happen. After major chapters or the end of a part, I'll write down what I think the author's trying to convey, and then also what I think it's actually conveying, and not just what happens, but what it means. How can this fit into a contemporary framework? What's the relationship between these two characters that the text may not be directly stating? What does this recurring imagery actually symbolize? That type of thing. This is kind of like the distillation process. You've done the reading, you've charted the plot, you know the characters, you've asked questions and been engaged, and now you're figuring out what it actually means. And if you're thinking, why would I write an actual literary analysis of each book? I just want to say it's so much more enjoyable when you can base your analysis around what interests you. You can just think about it as writing down what you notice and what you think it means, and putting a lot of things you're already thinking down on paper. It could be 2 sentences, it could be 2 pages, whatever you're feeling. And I know I've mentioned this, but for me, reading and annotating isn't about squeezing every little bit of life out of what you're reading. It's just about being intentional with the time you're already spending with a book. You're reading it anyway, so why not be purposeful with that time? And when you put all those sections together, you not only have a document that chronicles what happened in the book, but also what you personally were paying attention to when you read it. Because what you're paying attention to actually changes between reads too. And in the end, you have your own thoughts and interpretations of the book documented. And that's what really makes the difference when you want to have a conversation with someone about a book. Your star rating on Goodreads doesn't really tell you much, but this will actually give you something to say. Thanks for sticking around to the end. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. And if you want to take a bit more of a deep dive on this topic, you can check out this video that I made on annotating books.